Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Here's another one of my favorites from back in the summer, July 1st, 2020. It's the story of a faithful Canadian named Tom Carson. Hope you enjoy this as much as I do, and you have a great day. God bless you.
Good morning. Happy Canada Day to you. Thought it would be appropriate on Canada Day to share a story about a faithful Canadian. He wasn't really famous. You may not have ever heard of him. His name was Tom Carson. He came to Canada the way many people did over the last century. He was born in Ireland, but he moved to Canada as a little child. He lived in Ottawa and grew up there. His father was a printer. And as his father was faithful in taking him to church, Tom came to know Jesus Christ. They wouldn't have described themselves as a devout family early on, but Jesus made a lasting change in their lives. Tom, as he grew up, took on work with the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, serving in Greater Ottawa. And eventually, at the prompting of his spiritual mentor, old Mr. Blair, he called him, Tom responded to the call of Jesus Christ to go and to prepare for ministry. He left his home in Ottawa and during the dirty 30s, during the time of the Depression, studied at the seminary in Toronto. Eventually, he entered into church pastorates and served in churches both in Quebec and in Ontario. He was faithful in learning, always a learner. He learned both official languages so that he could minister the gospel both in Quebec and in Ontario, where God called him to serve. When Tom neared the end of his life, he lived a quiet life. Yet he still made an impact in the lives of others for the sake of Jesus Christ. His better known son, Don, has written really what is only the only biography of this great Canadian. And near the end of that biography, he writes about his father. I want to share some excerpts from that latter part as we celebrate this Canada Day. He wrote that on the day of the funeral, the building of the Gatineau Church was used for the memorial service. It was much bigger than his home church at Montclair. The building was packed. Cherise, the oldest of Dad's grandchildren, sang, "Find Us Faithful." That was Grandpa, she said. At the wake the day before, the quiet testimonials seemed unending. One young woman who was an attaché at one of the African embassies said that not long before, she had been in intensive care for over a month with postpartum complications. She was in a comatose or semi-comatose state during that time, unable to communicate. She said that Mr. Carson had come in every day, sat with her, read scripture to her, and prayed with her. Tom records, "I found no record of these visits in his journal. During Dad's final stay in the hospital, this woman prepared a room in her home for him in hope that he would be discharged and that she would have the privilege of nursing him back to health, in a sense to return the favor that he had granted to her." Don goes on to record of his father. He was buried beside his wife under a joint tombstone. It was a simple design with a cross and a sheaf of wheat meant to evoke Jesus' words, "I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." That's John 12:24. The names and dates of Dad and Mom are there, of course. For an inscription, Tom had toyed with using the words of Philippians 1:23. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But of course, whatever words he chose would have to be in both English and French. And that seemed to be too much to put on one tombstone. So the inscription simply reads, with Christ, avec Christ. Tom Carson never rose very far in denominational structures, but hundreds of people in Utoise and beyond testify how much he loved them. He never wrote a book, but he loved the book. He was never wealthy or powerful, but he kept growing as a Christian. Yesterday's grace was never enough. He was not a far-sighted visionary, but he looked forward to eternity. He was not a gifted administrator, but there's no text that says, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you are good administrators. His journals have many, many entries bathed in tears of contrition, but his children and grandchildren remember his laughter. Only rarely did he break through his pattern of reserved and speak deeply and intimately with his children, but he modeled Christian virtues to them. He much preferred to avoid controversy than to stir things up. But his own commitments to historic confessionalism were unyielding, and in ethics he was a man of principle. His own ecclesiastical circles were rather small and narrow, but his reading was correspondingly large and expansive. He was not very good at putting people down, except on his prayer lists. A great example of a faithful Canadian, a man who was faithful to Jesus Christ. Because it doesn't matter if we live in Canada or in some other country, what really matters is that we follow Jesus. So may God bless you this Canada Day. May He be watching over you and keeping you. And may we all come to that point where others recognize in us that we are faithful to Jesus Christ. You have a great day, and God bless you.